Alright, here's a cool design you might want to try. If you'll go down to your start menu, we will open our paint program. So click on all programs and head up to accessories. By now you should be getting good at this. Head down to the paint program, and again you can adjust your screen as you will. Either you adjust it to a custom size or simply maximize the screen like I'm going to do. And then find this little blue corner and hover over it, open that up, and we'll make this a nice big screen size. Again, this canvas, it just needs to be where you can actually see to the right and to the left of it, so that it's not taking up too much of your screen where you're going to have to use the scroll bar. It just becomes inconvenient. So again, make yourself a nice large canvas, but not so big that you have to use the scroll bars to navigate it. And what we're going to do is start out like we always do with the horizon line, and we're going to start out at this point. We'll give ourselves maybe a 2 line thickness and begin at this center point. Remember, this top and bottom is divided by this little center point here. So what we're going to do is left click, hold the shift key, and drag across, and that will become our horizon line. And from there we're going to create a little vanishing point, and to do this I'm just going to draw myself a little tiny X, which I can then erase later on. So I'm going to draw myself a little X, and I'm going to put this one a little bit left of center. So there's my X. That's going to be my vanishing point. And again, it's not in the center, but it's somewhat to the left of center. Now, at this point, I'd like to go back and change my line thickness, because we're eventually going to erase these guidelines. We're just going to use them to set our design up. And so I'm going to take my first line thickness, and starting from this vanishing point, I'm going to begin at the center of the vanishing point and left click and drag, and this one's going to go right off the page up here to the left, right up into that corner, maybe even go right up into the corner. Yeah, that's nice. Alright, and then this one, the next line, we're actually going to bring it only, not even off the page, we're just going to bring it right to about this point here. Again, from the vanishing point, somewhere below and to the left, and let it go. Alright, now this next vanishing point is actually going to come, it's not quite in my vanishing point, so I'm going to start at my vanishing point, and I'm going to left click and drag, and I'm going to drag it right off the center. Let's go to the center of the page here, right off the center, and then let's drag another one right off, perhaps right over here, so almost close, 3/4 of the way across to this point over here. Alright, that'll be nice. So what are we going to do with this? Well, we're basically going to take and turn these into houses. We're going to turn these into houses. I know it may sound a little bit complex, but we're actually going to do this. And in fact, I want you to draw one more line while we're still on this one line thickness. Let's go ahead and draw one more line somewhere over to here. Alright, so we've got 3 lines and then a single line. So 3 lines here, and then a horizon line 2 lines above. I think that's going to be a good starting point. Alright, now here's the effect. What we're going to do now, we've got these basic guidelines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 basic guidelines. We're going to come over and select a little bit thicker of a line. So let's go with a 3rd line thickness, and we'll go ahead and trace over these lines. So again, I'm going to start here and draw right up over this line. Then I do my second one, and again I just set these up as guidelines so that I can again come back and draw, and you'll see the importance of that as we continue to design. Then I'm going to skip that one for a while, that middle one, and I'm actually going to bring this down. Again, 3rd line thickness, and right down over here. Now for this, we're actually going to turn this into a sidewalk. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to start pretty much anywhere along this left line and move it to this right line, but I'm going to hold the shift key down because I want my line to be parallel to my horizon line. So again, I'm going to left click with my third line thickness, left click, hold the shift key, and simply drag it over to the other side. So I'm going to drag it across, and this is going to make the sidewalk effect. So again, I hold my shift key and drag, left click, hold my shift key and drag, left click, hold my shift key and drag, left click, hold my shift key and drag. So it's kind of a fun effect. You can already start to see it. You can imagine this is a sidewalk that's vanishing into the distance. And what are sidewalks? Oops, that's a little bit too far. I'm going to Control Z to undo that one. And again, left click and drag, and these are going to get a little bit closer as they get further away. So try to make those a little bit closer each time, and again, they'll eventually disappear. So there's my sidewalk. Now what I'm going to do is come over here and begin to connect this point to this first line to this second line, and then that second line I'm actually going to hold the shift key again. We want a straight line, and I'm going to bring that all the way down to this next line, and then from this point I'm going to hold the shift key again and drag it off the page. So again, you can see the 1-point perspective. This front plane is our closest plane, and we could actually turn this into a long house or into several small houses, and we're going to do the latter. We're going to turn it into several small houses. So I'm going to take my eraser tool. Let's get a big thick eraser here. Take my eraser tool and get rid of this line for now. And again, I'm not going to go into all kinds of detail, but I am going to go into some detail for you. And then you can take off and get creative with this design. But let's get this set up so you can start to see the effect. So I'm erasing. Now to get in here, I'm going to have to come in with my magnifying glass maybe twice. Then grab this smallest eraser, bring it right in. Okay, that ought to do it. And then I'm going to go back out and bring this down to the center so it's a full size, so I can see my entire canvas again. And then I'm going to go back and select my line tool, because that's the primary tool we're using, and I'm going to simply collect or start to section this off into smaller houses. Now you can see, if you look closely, if we were to put some windows and some doors, that this would be sort of a long apartment complex. But we're going to section it off, and here's the idea. We want this line on this plane to be parallel to all the other lines, and this width from here to wherever we start our next line is going to determine the width of our house. So I'm going to left click somewhere about here, holding the shift key down and dragging till I hit that lower line, and then I'm going to start from this point that I determined, and I'm actually going to drag. I'm not going to hold the shift key, I'm just going to simply drag to make it parallel to this line. So these two lines should look very similar. Alright, and then what we're going to do is we're going to skip a small way, and again we're going to left click and drag out another line, and again these two should be parallel. What do I mean by parallel? That if they were continued forever in each direction, they would never cross. So that's approximately parallel. This line here is a parallel to this line, which is parallel to this line, and that's what we want. Now to make these lines parallel, these vertical lines, is much easier, because all we have to do is left click, hold the shift key and drag, and that will ensure that those lines are parallel. Now you may, those of you who are keenly aware, may start to see the houses that are emerging, and we're just going to do 3 for now. So again, I hold the shift key, drag. So that's our second house. Then I'm going to skip a little ways. Again, draw another parallel line, hold the shift key and drag down, and decide how thick I want this house. That looks good. Right to there. Start from my point again. make sure this is again, that these lines are parallel to each other, and that these lines are parallel to each other. This line, these should be parallel to one another. Alright, and you could continue to do that with your magnifying glass tool if you wanted to, but I'm going to just stop so you can get the effect. I don't want to bore you too much here. Alright, so what I'm going to do is then erase this line because we don't need it anymore. It was good to help us out when we started, but I don't really need it anymore. Now I do want my horizon to continue, so I'm going to actually go back and draw that here in a moment. Okay, and see how I messed up this line a little bit. I can actually go back, make sure my third line thickness is selected, and redraw that line so it looks a little bit nicer. Okay, now I'm going to take that third line thickness, that line, and just continue these across to finish off the bottoms of the houses. And the order you do this is not real important, but if you're following along for this first time, I suppose you should follow along precisely with me. Then at this corner, this bottom corner, again, we need to hold that shift key down as we click and as we drag, and we're going to stop here at the next house, so it appears as if it goes back into an alleyway between the two houses. And we're going to do that again right here, left click, hold the shift key, drag, and stop right there. So now we're going to come back in and clean this up so you can see the effect. Actually, I'm going to start from my vanishing point again, and I think I had a second line thickness for this, so I'm going to start from my vanishing point, grab, hold the shift key, and drag that to my house so that it disappears, so my horizon line looks as if it continues. Then I'm going to come in with the eraser tool and start to, actually I need the magnifying glass so that I can come in and do a little bit of work on this. So I'm actually going to magnify one time, select the eraser tool, select the second line, and I'm going to start to erase these lines that I don't feel like I need. I like that one and that little tip right there, especially this here. I don't need this. So I'm very carefully coming in and erasing. Alright, and then I can actually navigate with this little slider bar at the bottom. And I can move myself along, and again, don't feel afraid to change the size of your eraser. If you want to go with a smaller eraser, that's perfectly fine. Do what you're comfortable with, but the idea is to erase these unnecessary lines in between the houses, so that will help define each house. And if you do something you don't like, you can always either redraw the line by clicking on it. Third line thickness, like here, I want to redraw that, hold that shift key down, bring it right up to fix it. Okay, or here where it looks like I've messed that line up a little bit, I can go back over that line. Alright, and again, scroll up and scroll across, and I want to get rid of this section of line that connects these two houses, so I'm going to select my eraser tool and just carefully begin to erase. Alright, and it looks like that's pretty good, so I'm going to actually zoom back out, so bring this bar to the middle. Now I can actually see a couple places that I need to fix up. One is right here, and again, you can, this is optional, you can erase it or you can leave it if you want to turn it into something. But what I do want to do is, it looks like these houses are sort of coming off into their own little space, and so what I'm going to do is select the third line thickness again and actually drag this corner down behind so that it looks like a house, the peak of a house. I think that'll make it look a little bit nicer. So again, you could actually use this technique to create windows, to create doors. Again, I'll just show you one door just so you can see the effect. So again, hold the shift key, Drag that door up as tall as you want it. Hold the shift key. Drag that door up as tall as you want it. Now, how do we make the top look correct? Well, we'd have to drag out from our horizon line a top of our door. So holding the shift key, or actually I would actually bend that down just a little bit because that's going to bend towards the horizon line. So you can get creative, put some doorknobs, put some windows, all kinds of neat things, add some color, all kinds of neat things. So I hope that gets you started on a cool new design that you can use, again, using 1-point perspective. Now, before we go, we better save this file. Oh, I almost forgot. Let's push save as, and we'll save this as 1-point houses. And I'm going to save that as a bitmap image. And I click save, and there it is. So I hope you've learned quite a bit that you can use from this video, and have a great time with using it. And I'll see you next time.